Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 326, and today we're going to be doing battle with Iceborn Legacy Spiders. And so before we dive in, talk about Trundle and Elise and the spider package we have going on here today, the spoilers for Glory of the Navori have begun, and we're going to want to start talking about those cards as they appear. And so to jump into some of these new cards, the one that everyone is hyped about, the one that the people are making the most speculation about is the one here on the left, the coin. And I think this is a very interesting card. And so it costs 1 mana and it refills 1 spell mana, but the interesting piece is that it stacks. And so if you're used to having the powder kegs onto the board that you get out of Bilgewater to where they stack up onto the board, only take 1 slot out of your bench, the same thing happens with the coin. And so you can get 4 and 5 and 6 coins in your hand at the same time. They only take up 1 space in your hand. And so I think that's fairly interesting. I don't think that there's any game up to this point that has really kind of included a mechanic like this. It's just something that's physically impossible with a paper game like Magic, and I don't, to the best of my knowledge, think it's happened anywhere like Hearthstone or Eternal or whatever. And so very interesting kind of concept to expand upon the limited resource that is your hand size, and I think that that's a kind of interesting space to be. But with the coin, I think there's a couple of interesting prospects with this. First and foremost, to the best of my knowledge, it only refills spell mana, so you can't use this as a tool to ramp. So let's say on turn 2, we attack with this Attentive Accountant, we get a coin. On turn 3, we play a dude that generates a coin, so now we have 2. On turn 4, I don't believe that we can play the coin and then go up to 5 mana because it says refill. I'm curious to see how that plays out. It does give a lot more power to the coins if that's the way that it actually works, but since it says refill instead of something like gain, I kind of feel like you can only recover the mana that you've already spent. And so again, I might be wrong on that. I'm not entirely certain how that works. I haven't seen any dev posts on the Twitter actually explaining that, but that's what would make sense to me. But with that same idea in mind, the thing that people, of course, worry about are what kind of ridiculous OTK shenanigans can you pull off with the coin. If you start to spend 16, 17, 18 mana within the same turn, you're probably just going to outright win the game. And I think that that's completely okay. I think we've seen over the past competitive year that Riot is willing to just let decks win the game on turn 9, but if they start to consistently win on that turn 7 and turn 8 space, that's when they start to see a nerf. And I think that's fair. You know, if they're going to pick a turn in the game to where they say, well, this is it, you know, this is the turn where the Sun Disk can pop, then, you know, that's completely okay. I think they just have to pick a reasonable spot to where it feels like we're getting a meaningful amount of time into each game. And I think that that's where we're at. And so with, you know, decks like Turbo Thralls, decks like Aphelios Fizz using the Winding Light, they were winning too consistently on turn 7. They got nerfed a little bit. Things like Champion Strength were winning the game too consistently on turn 6 and turn 7, and so it got nerfed up an additional point of mana. And so I think that there is a bit of potential for this to produce kind of like a turn 7, turn 8 kind of deck, but I feel like, you know, we probably only have to deal with it for a month, and then Riot would would nerf it with the next upcoming patch. The next thing that strikes me as kind of interesting with the coin, let's see what the kitty says about it, right? We got Pepper up here. She says, let me tell you what I think about the coin. No, the next thing that's interesting is that while you do get a bit of advantage in not taking up your hand space with having 5 and 6 and 7 coins in your hand, you do lose out on some of that discard power. And so one of the more powerful effects we've seen throughout the course of the game is just generating cards and then discarding them to something. And so whether or not we're talking about playing a Jinx-based deck that has Daring Poros in it, or if we're talking about playing Rummages, or if we're talking about playing Rumble, there's always been a place to have, you know, value from discarding stuff, and you don't get that with the coin. And so I'm curious to see if we get upset that that's not really a possibility, or if it, you know, just kind of becomes nonsense and a non-factor. But it is something to kind of reasonably think about in a game that has so much card generation and in a game that has so many ways to kind of discard things that you don't really get a bonus out of that. with the coin. And so if we are playing some kind of Elusives deck with this Attentive Accountant and then wanting to discard to the Daring Poro Cannon, there we go. If we're wanting to discard to Poro Cannon, then we're at like a real risk reward stage to where we have to, be curious if we're going to be discarding 2 or 3 coins or just that singular one. And so real interesting space there. Last thing I want to say about the coin is it does give this other kind of interesting angle to where cards are allowed to care about the coin. And I'm curious if that's something that the game will actually take advantage of, as to where, say we use the Behold mechanic, right, where Behold wants a specific condition to make something happen. If we get to say Behold 3 coins in hand, maybe something happens, or Behold 5 coins, maybe something happens, or discard a coin to make something happen. I'm kind of curious if that stuff will make its way in, especially if the coins get tied into what the champions are capable of doing. And so, all around good stuff. I'm excited to see what the coins do. That can tie into the Attentive Accountant. And I think the Attentive Accountant is the one that would become really interesting if you could ramp with these things. I don't think that's the case. Again, I might be wrong on how the coins work. It's just I might be getting confused with refill. But that is a pretty powerful space, again, to where if you play the Accountant on turn 2, you Nexus Strike, get a coin. On turn 3, you'll play a unit that generates a coin and you have 2 in hand. Now on turn 4, you have this ramp ability that didn't take too much effort. There's a lot of real strength and power that can come out of that. I think if it does function as a ramp spell, then cards like Attentive Accountant are going to be extremely powerful. If it doesn't count as a ramp spell, I'm a little bit hesitant to say something like Attentive Accountant is going to be good. I think it does lend itself to perhaps being a filler card in an Elusives deck. If Green Glade Duo survives the cut, maybe the Attentive Accountant just can kind of fit in a space like there. But without the ramp aspect to it, I don't think I'm particularly interested in the Attentive Accountant. But the next card, Tag Out, this is one that's kind of interesting to me. And so we do see a lot of cards just get combined over the course of time, right? If we want to say Flash Freeze costs 3 mana, lets you Frostbite 1 unit. Harsh Winds used to cost 6 mana. It's like 2 Flash Freezes attached together, but it's just a little bit more expensive. Tag Out is kind of maybe sort of functionally like putting both Recall and Will of Ionia together in the same card. They technically cost the same thing if we invest the coin in a later turn. And so I'm kind of curious how this will, end up playing out. If we're willing to pay a little bit more upfront to get access to the coins later, or if that's just too much of a detriment to make a card like this really pay off. But as we've seen here in recent times with the ability Flow, having the Tag Out come down and then generate another spell, and you can play that spell to activate your Flow and get your Leasons or whatnot happening. I think that there's a lot of potential for Tag Out to actually do something pretty special here. It just it doesn't strike me as initially looking like doing a lot, but having that internal recall on your own units, the external recall on your opponent's units, along with generating a coin and activating flows, you start to chain a lot of words together. And whenever that starts to happen, you might actually have a bit of potential out of a card. And so pretty interesting with the Tag Out there. Up next, the Bout Security, another one that seems pretty interesting to me. It's, of course, easily comparable to something like... what are you? The Mistwraith. There we go. Mistwraith is another one that kind of scales with the more of these that you play. And I think in a vacuum, Bout Security is just much stronger than Mistwraith. This ability to where you grant all of the ones further down the road all of these stats. They get the bonus health along the way, so there'll be 3 3s, 4 4s, 5 5s, and then generating additional Bout Securities as you go. Very powerful ability. But this also has some of that discard stuff that we were talking about earlier, right? So what if we're in the space to where we play a Bout Security, he's on the board, we get the fleeting copy in hand, and then we discard the fleeting copy to Rummage, or something along those lines. Or even if on a future turn, we recall the Bout Security, we play him again, we get the fleeting copy, and then we discard that additional fleeting copy to something else. Like, there's a lot of interesting combos that can come out of a card like this. I think the kind of telling thing with a card like Bout Security is going to be if there's another card that generates them. And so it can be a little challenging if you want to go all in on building around Bout Security and you only have access to 3 copies of it. And so if there's another, Wraithcaller-esque card or another Risen Mist style card that can generate an additional Bout Security, I think we'll have a lot of interesting powers there. But if you're limited to just the singular 3 copies, I don't think this guy will make much of an impact. And so they're going to have to really see the rest of the set to kind of determine whether or not this is going to be a really high-powered card or if it's just going to be on the fringes because it's not consistent enough with only 1 copy running around. On to the next page. These are the last 3. The Smooth Mixologist, kind of interesting. I'm never particularly excited about these heal cards, but it does technically only cost 3 mana. It's a 3/4 for 3 mana that heals 3. That's another kind of interesting space. We always have to give a little bit of extra attention to these cards that can come in and just generate additional cards, and so it has a lot of potential to be good. Personally, I don't like cards like this because they don't, interact well with Legion Rearguard. If the only thing I want to be doing in life is attacking with Legion Rearguard, I do not want to be seeing a unit that can heal the damage away and block it without dying. And so, this card's terrible. Don't don't attempt to play this ever. But no, as we were talking about with the recall card, I'm curious to see how these play out as to where you're paying a little bit more mana up front to get access to that coin later. So it technically costs 3 mana. This is a technical 3 mana card because the coin can negate some of that pricing. I guess it might be more fair to say it's like a 3.5 cost card, right? Because the first coin doesn't net you any mana. But I think this is potentially very powerful, and if you're one of those kind of filthy Ionia players with Karma and Seraphine and the like, you should probably be pretty excited about the Smooth Mixologist. Up next, Master Big Win, the Civ. I'm not particularly impressed with this guy. He has Elusive, and then the playability, the next time you play a unit this round, summon an exact ephemeral copy of it. And so this is something to where if there is a big combo deck, if we have that big 16, 17, 18 mana Ionia turn, this guy's going to be at the pillar of it, right? You're going to play this dude, you're going to have some big summon effect, and then you're going to double that summon effect, and so you play Master Big Win, and then you play a Windswept Drake, whatever that 7 mana elusive is that doubles up your team, and then you get a copy of it and just win the game. Or you play a Saiyan Thousand-Tailed. These are just value-esque kind of cards, but I'm sure there's some expensive 7 or 8 mana unit that just wins the game, and he will be a piece of that combo. And so I'm not particularly excited about that at the moment, but he's either going to be a pillar of a strong combo deck or just an absolute dud. Now, last but not least, we have the Pit Professional, the 3/3 for 3, which comes into play and summons a coin. This card's fine, right? This is a good card. A 3/3 for 3 that comes down and generates a card is a good deal. I was hoping that not so much that we were moving away from this, but we were kind of getting color pie definitions of where these cards should exist. And so here with the upcoming rotation, we saw the Avarosian Sentry kind of become Ceaseless Sentry. The idea when the rotation happens is that Avarosian Sentry didn't really fit into the themes of Freylord, so he's going to be removed from the standard format. The Ceaseless Sentry does fit into the themes of Shadow Isles, and so he's going to be the card around going forward. And so I think that's, a very good definition of what we should kind of expect to see out of the color pie. If you want to say look at removal spells, you can see that, okay, Demacia gets strikes and fights, P and Z gets stuff that does damage like Mystic Shot and Thermogenic Beam, and then Shadow Isles gets removal that's permanent. So say like a Vengeance or a Crumble. Ionia gets removal in the form of recalls, right? You kind of get a little bit of definition of what every faction is supposed to be able to do in terms of interacting with opposing units. Now, when we see cards like Pit Professional, I feel like Riot has really printed 3/3s for 3 that add cards across every faction, and I would like to start to see a little bit of definition in this. And so I think that the the Loyal Badger Bear was a great printing, right? It's a kind of 4/4 do nothing, big meaty kind of unit that you get out of Demacia. It doesn't generate any cards, right? That's something that Vanguard Sergeant does, but in the grand scheme of things, should Vanguard Sergeant really be a Demacia card? And so I think that we'll start to see cards like Vanguard Sergeant get rotated out of the game. You know, Demacia should be good at putting these big kind of vanilla units on the board, and then this card generation stuff get pushed off into other factions. And so I'm just kind of saying I'm tired of seeing 3/3s for 3 that generate a card across every faction. I'm kind of curious if this is going to be a Ionia-based theme, or if Riot is just carrying on and say "fuck you, bust." You don't know what you're talking about. We're going to have these running around for the entirety of time. And so I'm curious if, again, this is just going to be a Ionia-based ability now. Ionia should be good at generating cards like the coin. They get the 3/3s for 3. Or should we start to, again, see like other factions to where maybe if this card was in Bilgewater, it would be a 3/2 or a 2/3, just a little bit smaller to kind of indicate that, okay, Bilgewater can have access to this kind of generation ability, but it's not their strong point, so the unit's a little bit weaker. And so, again, this card itself, not much to say about it. It's exceptionally powerful, but that design decision behind it is what I'm kind of curious and interested in. And so, those are the new cards. Let's jump back to these old ones. We can talk about the deck that we're going to play with a little bit today. And so, excuse me, this is something that I was very fond of. I really loved this style of deck back in Expedition. If you're not familiar with the combos that we have here, we're mainly tying into Iceborn Legacy. And so this card has gone through a bit of changes. Back in its initial state, it was a slow spell, and it got upgraded from a slow spell to I can't remember if it became if there's been 4 iterations or 3, but in the Expedition days, it was in the slow spell state. And so the idea that you're trying to pull off here is that you have broodlings, the little spiderlings. Elise generates spiderlings, crawling sensations, vile feast, brood swarm. They all generate the little spiderling. If we get to drop an Iceborn Legacy on them, they get +2/+2 for the remainder of the game. And so throughout the course of these games, we're going to try and level up our little spiderlings into something special. The Iceborn Legacy is, again, the classic way to do it. This was such a fun Expedition deck for like a week, and then they they nerfed it away because of the Elusives. But we do have a few more tools these days to help make these spiderlings a little bit better. Everyone to this point should be experienced with the Spirits Unleashed. This has been one of the most popular Freylord cards out of the past 6 months or so. Another fantastic way to help us come in and level up all of our little spiderlings throughout the course of the game. Last but not least, we now have access to the Wraith of Echoes. This is one of the more recent additions to the game as well. At the round end, for each ally that died this round, you give all allied copies of it everywhere +1/+1. So if we lose 2 spiderlings on the turn, the Wraith of Echoes will give all of our spiderlings everywhere +2/+2 for the remainder of the game. And so we're looking to tie, again, all of these unit boosting cards, the Legacy, the Spirits Unleashed, and the Wraith of the Echoes, together with all of this spider generation. Hopefully we can get some big spiders on the board to come in and close out the game with. Otherwise, we just have a bit of interactivity. We have the Vile Feasts and the Vengeances to take down the opposing units. We have the Buried in Ice along with It's It Stairs combo to get those big AoE clears on the opposing board, and then just some high quality champions in both Trundle and Elise. And so that's the deck. That's what we'll be doing battle with today. Let's go ahead and jump on in, see what we can do. I'm just going to look to get 5 games in with this today. I spent 15-20 minutes talking about the new cards. That kind of cuts in to our gameplay time, but I think it's okay. We're getting wound down here at the end of the season in terms of gameplay. We're getting wound up in terms of the new cards coming out. It's exciting to get to sit around and talk about them. I can't wait to be 2 or 3 months from now and just see how wrong I was about everything. It's it's a fairly common thread, but it's a pretty tough time to try and deduce how good any of these cards are going to be. In the past, it's a little bit easier in the sense that you know what exists, and you can kind of tie the new cards into the old ones. But in this new space where the rotation is going to happen and the the matchmaking is apparently not going to happen, it's a little bit more challenging to do. All right, there we go. I think we fixed it. Looking good. Jumping into battle against Lurk. Let's see how it goes. And so here, this is going to be a matchup where, unfortunately, we're not going to really be popping off with the themes of the deck. The Lurk deck is just too fast for us to be able to get Spiderlings on board and then cast a spell on them and have the game progress from there. And so I have to imagine in this one, we're not going to be doing a lot of spider boosting, but we'll give it a chance. We'll give it a shot. Maybe we can have something come together. Now, interesting pickup in the Brood Awakening. Oh my god! I was gonna say we have the chance to roll into the next turn and then potentially just have 3 blockers. But how do we feel about it now that he just has 2 dudes on board? I think it's okay. I think if he's just open attacking on us next turn, it's not that big of a deal, and we can just take the 4. If we're going to be real, probably 5 damage, because these Lurk decks are just the biggest luck fests in the world. But I think we'll probably have the time for a good Brood Awakening. All right. Old Zia here is probably feeling like the least lucky Lurk opponent in the world. He's got his one blind hit. Congratulations there. But he hasn't hit any Rek'Sais up to this point. We'll probably start changing our tune once he shows us the 3 pikes in his hand. But it kind of is what it is. There we go. I was going to say, I want to try and get this crawling sensations on the board. Just get a little bit of width with our dudes here. There's the Rek'Sai. Again, just need a little bit of time. We've been pretty greedy in this game, but I think we haven't hit that danger point. The only thing that we're really concerned about coming from the opponent is going to be the overwhelm units. And so he hasn't hit Rek'Sai yet. There it is. And so as long as he's not hitting overwhelm, then we should be fine. Of course, no predict for the turn, so I 100% expect the flip to come in. Oh, call the pack. Okay, you can have that one, I guess. All right, many funds. Everyone enjoying this matchup. I feel like my explanation of people that enjoy playing Lurk are I'm curious of the overlap of people that spend 10% of their paychecks on scratch off lottery tickets compared to the people that play Lurk. And I assume that within that, it's not even a Venn diagram, it's just a circle. Oh man, that's probably the people on Reddit always bitch about how Riot doesn't advertise the game. They don't do enough advertisements. Maybe what Riot should do is just print scratch off tickets that have pictures of Rek'Sai and Pike on it. And once the people in the Scratcher land determine how much fun they could be having playing the Lurk deck, they'll just give up on the Scratchers and just play Legends of Runeterra all the time. All right, wow, that was fun. On to the next one. See how we handle old Rise here. I can tell you how we're going to handle Rise. Not particularly well. But the interesting thing, as we do go up against Rise, is our access to Ithid Stairs and potentially blowing up 2 or 3 of their landmarks. They can, of course, deny the Ithid Stairs circle ability, but we do have that opportunity to throw down onto their key game plan. All right, not the greatest of starts, but we at least have a 2-drop to throw down. Oh, Elise turned up. Perfect timing. kind of interesting in the sense because what we're going to look to be doing here is spending 2 mana on this upcoming turn. It's probably going to be for a Ceaseless Sentry because we're not going to have any Vile Feast targets, but then have on turn 4 have access to 6 mana for either a Brood Awakening or an Iceborn Legacy. Iceborn Legacy is of course the kind of safer play since it has focus and you can't deny it, but the bigger damage play is going to be the Brood Awakening. So we'll see how we feel on that upcoming turn. It's kind of nice to potentially take away the opposing to potentially take away the opposing denies. All right, we're at least safe for the turn. Not having the damaged base thing come down. We could have Vile Feasted the Eye of the Dragon to have a different unit on board, but it strikes me as a little weak. All right, here's what the deck does. The old Iceborn Legacy coming in. Feels good. Interesting no block from the Eye of the Dragon. Now we're in this space to where if we Vile Feast next turn and don't lose any units, we can flip our Elise. Ooh, Iceborn Legacy number 2. Uh-oh. Time to get nasty. Time to get nasty. All right, well, yeah, let's bring in the Ceaseless Sentry now. You know, we have the 4 spiders. We don't have anything else to add to the board. We're just going to want to Iceborn Legacy next turn, so we definitely have the mana set up for it. It's good. Oof, oof. Oh, man. Bring a little emote to that one. Aww. I think it's okay. It's okay to have our Elise get sent back, but that was going to be quite the turn, wasn't it? He's still going to get boomed on this upcoming turn. He doesn't have to block with his Eye of the Dragons, but I suspect he's going to. Oh. Right, unfortunately, this will take him to 1 if he blocks with his 2 Dragonlings, and so bit of a bummer there. But I think we're at least safe in terms of him getting a Rise kill next turn. Well, he does have the spell mana version. Might just be dead. Might be dead. That's gonna be a bummer, man. We get everything going well, everything going right, and we still just get OTK'd by Rise. God, I hope this guy rotates. Even hit him off the drum solo, so he came down for 2 mana. All right, well, let's see if he hits. Number 3. All right, there's a flip short thing. Let's see if we can't continue on with a nice and fun game of a nice and fun game of no interactivity. But the Brood Awakening here, assuming that this resolves. Nice, he denies it. I was going to say, assuming that it resolves, we should stop him from attacking, right? He's not going to attack or rise into a bunch of 6/6 spiders, so we should be safe in that sense. Now, on this upcoming turn, he doesn't have the space for Dragonlings anymore. We should be okay. You know, there's no guarantees, of course. You can have, 2 Steel Tempests and a bounce spell or something, but hopefully it's enough. It was. GG. Very fun game. Very fun game. Just go out and Call up Morton's, you know, call up Morton's, tell him Bust is spewing the salt. He had to talk about Ionia cards in the review. He had to play against Lurk, which fucking sucks. He has to play against Rise, which is one of the dumbest decks ever. He's spewing it everywhere, just a mountain of it. Oh, now it's Seraphine, perfect. Oh man, what a joke! What a joke! All right, though, let's hang on to one Elise, see if we can't find some other early game plays to go along with it, and then, you know, one unit booster would be nice. So if we could have found Iceborn Legacy or a Spirits Unleashed, would have been pretty happy.
Sun, run, bun, doesn't have to rhyme. Wanna hear if you call, I'll respond.
Interesting. Well, I won't risk the Mystic Shot. It's a very suspicious attack coming out of Seraphine. But having our fearsome unit in Elise, and then if he wants to, say, put Seraphine in front of a Spiderling, it's going to start to activate our crawling sensations, and so I don't feel like it's really worth the risk of losing a unit here. Then if he kills something, I think we'll play the other crawling sensations. If he doesn't kill anything, we'll just wait till next turn and play Brood Awakening. This is just one of these spots I don't want to get super invested in this board. This deck, it tends to play the full 3 copies of Caustic Rift, and that's essentially what this match is going to come down to. And so if we can find a stat booster so we aren't getting AoE'd by things like Red Card, then we'll just be much safer with our Spiderling plan. Oh shit, that's not effective. I had in my head that I wasn't losing out on anything because we were going to because we were losing out on one unit but not the mana. We definitely lost out on the mana here. About to get popped by the Mystic Shot on the Elise, and she's not going to flip. So that was definitely a mistake on our end. The basic mathematics can be tough to pull off, and so you gotta watch yourselves on occasion. Oh man, and then how sick would this be if we had that board of 5 or 6 spiders here along with the top decked Iceborn Legacy? I guess our saving grace in that sense is we wouldn't have had 6 mana this turn if we had gone for the full mana spend on the previous turn. And so there's a little back and forth happening there, I guess. Now, interesting thing here, we can kind of look at the Spirits Unleashed as a burn spell. And so that does strike me as being fairly important on this upcoming turn. Because if you want to say, okay, let's play Brood Awakening, that's going to give us a full board of 6 spiders with 4 attack. And if we get to hit with 2 of the 4 attack units and take the opponent down to 1, then we can get a kill with the Spirits Unleashed to get that last point of damage in. So we'll see if this all pops off. It should be fairly challenging for him to drop a bunch of spells for the Mischievous Mirai and then also have an AoE. So I don't think we have to worry about our spiders dying this turn. I guess the probable worst outcome would be if he starts like preemptively sending out warning shots and then makes it rain. He's thinking real hard on this one. Alright, spiders on the board. Are we going to get that sweet kill? Are we going to take him to 1 and Spirits Unleashed him down? It's going to be sweet, my friends. It's going to be sweet. Alright, Encore. He's going to play his free spell and then make it rain. Is that what we're going to see? Not a bad one, hitting a rummage. He discarded a... What was that? A Monster Harpoon and a Scrap Dash Assembly. Oh man, we don't even have the space to get a kill through here. That's a bummer. Try it this way. Drop the old buried in the ice, and then if something goes wrong this turn, we can still just clear out his entire board next turn. Okay, that strikes me as good. I did the mathematics, and it came back positive. It's not bad, you know? All right, 3 AU spiders getting in. Should be pretty tough to stop this with only 4 mana. There it is. It was not stopped. GG. Whew. Our mistakes turn into positives. Planned it that way. Remember that. If it looks like I made a mistake, you probably just don't understand it. I'm thinking on I'm thinking on that next level. If you visit ftpbust.com, it lets you know that FTP Bust is the #1 player in the world, and so keep that in mind whenever you're questioning my plays. But all right, up against Annie, Ezreal, another place to where we have to worry a little bit about the incoming AoEs. This is another deck that plays a bunch of Caustic Rifts, and so ideally we'll find a Spirits Unleashed, or we'll find a proper removal spell to help us get through this. And so I don't think we should have hung on to these Crawling Sensations. I mean, it might work out okay. I think maybe one would have been fine. I don't think we should have kept both of them. It's just too important to find those unit boosters, and we have a lot in terms of Spiderling generation, and so it's kind of this chicken and the egg scenario where if you don't have any units to boost, then the unit boosting cards don't do anything, but it is possible to come out here and just get stuck with all these terrible cards. So all right, well, we just need to take 1 mana into next turn. So we can play the double Crawling Sensations. Again, this is kind of asking to get blown up by Caustic Rift. And so do we want to stop beforehand? Well, if he's going to play Static Shocks, I bet we don't. Let's see where that gets us. We could have looked to potentially, say, Vile Feasted Annie and then killed her with the Spirits Unleashed, but I think we'll have time to get this Annie off of the board. And if she flips, it's not that big of a deal. All right, so again, our spiders on board only have the 1 health. It's a bit of a bummer in terms of surviving AoE, but all of our future spiders are going to have the requisite stats to survive. It's tempting to just let our unit die. Like, I would prefer to have the Spiderling than the Hapless Aristocrat, but I don't want to count on this Annie not dying. Oh, wow. We take that Annie down with 5 ticks on her? That's pretty impressive.
Look, a thing.
Elf, that's not ours.
What'd he hit? Dang it. I wasn't too upset to lose the Vengeance. It certainly has some purpose here, but I was pretty excited about the the Brood Awakening coming in. So cards like Trundle, not spectacular in this match. The opponent's going to have a bunch of dumb stuff like Lord Broadmane to take down our damaged units, and so I don't have particularly high expectations for him. You know, it's like disintegrate kind of cards are what the opposing deck is really good at. So I imagine our Trundle here is just going to die to like a Ravenous Flock. We'd much prefer to be taking our width up against these cards. Are you going to survive the round, Trundle? Why wouldn't he flock in combat? Weird. He just wanted to lose his aloof travelers. So we could take a hit from the Tybalak. We don't have to Vengeance here. But I think his turn is kind of done after this, and we can still follow up with both sentries. I think this is okay.
Nothing escapes my watch.
Averrosion Sentry. Does he have a voice line with the Ceaseless? We'll see. Silence. Nothing. Oop. Alright, well, we can get it all down this turn. We can hook in the Broad Main with one of our sentries, get the Wraith and the Aristocrat down. This game is far from over. I know it feels like we have a lot of advantage on the board here, but opponent still has a ton of cards in hand. They're going to have a ton of removal. And we'll wait till after combat to drop the Wraith. He's not going to attack here. I don't want the Wraith just getting this rando damage on it from the Arachnoid Sentry and then dying to a Ravenous Flock or something. If we get it down after combat, then we get some of these stat boosts along the way. Okay. All right, Ceaseless Sentry, you're about to get many stats, right? Your friend went down, so you're gonna become a 4/3. Boom. And it stares interesting. If we, I think it's too scary to drop if it stares on landmarks and expect it to work. But we don't have much else going on here. He just has to have the spell every time, right? There's no way he doesn't have a spell in hand. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to get this one. We're just a little bit too far short on this upcoming turn. Doesn't help that we just damaged all of our units. It doesn't help. But yeah, it looks like if we add one more unit in, we're going to be hitting for like 5 or 6 damage, and it's not going to be enough. All right. All right, let's move on to a final battle. So many dumb decks today. I don't. Can I bring a little bit more salt out here just for this garbage selection of decks we've had to play? Like right before the format goes, you say, "Oh man, I want to have me some fun today. Let's queue up Annie Ezreal." Is that here? Perfect. You know who likes to have fun? Andresito. Yeah, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. If I knew where you lived, if I had your home address, I would jump in the car, drive to your home, and give you a high five. This is this is exactly what we're looking for, coming to do some battle against the Aurelian Soul Ramp. But okay, let's get rid of our Vile Feasts. They shouldn't really be killing anything in this match, and we'll dig for some of our Spiderling cards. I don't suspect we're going to be playing anything in the first few turns here. We'll see what turns up, but this just strikes me as being a Spirits Unleashed start. No rush 15. Let's go to turn 7 before anybody plays cards, right? You gotta come in and build all the combos. Alright, opponent makes the first move. The Wild Mysticism. I don't think we currently care about it. We could drop a Brood Awakening, of course, and get the 2/1s onto the board, but it feels like we need to build up our stats. This is a deck, like when we played this, we played a little bit of AoE. It's hard to tell how much of this ramp the opponent's going to be bringing here, though. Alright, so the Sentry is the only dude we can get on board for the turn. Let's see when it dies. He's not really compelled to block it. He's got plenty of time here. Probably doesn't want us drawing the cards, but we would, of course, ideally be getting the Crawling Sensations and the Brood Awakening happening. All the Vengeances today. Not a bad time for them to turn up against the ramp deck. Iceborn Legacy. Oh, shit. Shit might be getting real. Definitely want to pop off the Legacy if we can. I'm going to say this is going to let us survive all of his removal. Say, whoops. Whoops, Blighted Ravine. Whoops. All right, the big boy's ready to come through town now. Exciting, exciting. Sure. Is he gonna have the combo on us next turn? Sweep away all of our spiders? Oh noes. Oh noes. Sure. We're not allowed to call that lame because our deck does the same thing. And so under normal circumstances, we would say that say the guy's being a bit of a lame-o here, but as it stands, we're not allowed to do it. I'm curious if he's gonna feel the rushes next turn. He has the mana for it. He also has the mana to just start putting down 10 drops. So a little bit of worry there. But I think we want to flip our Trundle and see what happens. Like, She Who Wanders would be pretty tolerable. A lot of our spider cards are generated from spells, so it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, I feel the rush is a little bit more painful. This will come down to whether or not he hits Tryndamere. Trundle in. And Aurelian Soul. Didn't hit the Tryndamere, though. Alright, so part one of the equation has been dealt with, and now, do we want to just go ahead and slam our Trundle into the Ithit Stairs? And I think we do. Like, he's not going to do anything else. I guess we could, like, look to wait a turn and then Buried in Ice's team. That's all we get to do next turn. I don't think it's enough. Get ready for a beatdown, dude. Alright, and then we can look to, say, Vengeance and play a Ceaseless Sentry. Alright, everybody's Trundle's flipped. So we got 10 mana. We can do all this, right? We can add the Sentry, we can Vengeance, and we can Aristocrat. Let's at least wait on combat to happen before we drop a Vengeance. It's going to be a little unfortunate if he just has another Trundle, right? We Vengeance his Trundle and he plays another one. Oh boy. So now we can definitely pass the turn without attacking. That's a bit unfortunate. I still think he's going to bring it in. Like, it's so easy to send the Trundle into this board. But if he just passed, we would be forced to Vengeance the Trundle outside of combat. I don't know though, fam. Having to deal with a second Aurelian Soul is a little much.
I do love an audience.
That's the answer though, right? Spirits Unleashed coming in at a timely moment. Top deck and strong today. It's not luck, it's skill. Skill is just the luck is just the expression of skill in random moment situations, right? We're just we're just finding these moments to where we can maximize our top decks. Nothing about luck whatsoever. Maximizing my expression of skill. What do you think of that, Aurelian Soul? She Who Wanders. Oh, fuck. Alright, well. I guess we'll call it a day there. Womp womp. Just make sad noises. Alright. But nonetheless, good set of games. We can pull this deck up and talk about it a little bit more. We hit kind of the gamut of everything with this deck today. We didn't run into Nora. We didn't run into any of the aggro decks, although the aggro decks are fairly non-existent in this format. Like Annie is the top deck in the format. Annie Jin is the most common deck in the format, but it's only at like 6 or 7%. And so it's very realistic that you'll play 20 or 30 games and not even run into Annie. I guess we did play against Lurk, which was kind of meh, but nonetheless, this deck happened. And so, it's a fairly reasonable deck. It all, to me, comes down to the Iceborn Legacy, right? I feel like if you're going to play a deck centered on Spirits Unleashed, then you can just do better, right? The Spirits Unleashed, it works with things like Nora. It works with anything that summons stuff. I feel like if this is the only card you're going to be playing, then you can do better than this. And so it's really coming down to the Iceborn Legacy, which is what makes this deck really pop, right? You could see in these games how incredibly special it felt. When you had the Iceborn Legacy played, it felt like you just couldn't be touched. You couldn't be stopped, even though we did lose that last game after playing it. But it is exceptionally powerful and the real reason to be playing a deck like this. And I'm curious about the space as to where the Daring Poro deck has really kind of fallen off. It's losing out on Poro Cannon and the like has been a real pain for it. But that was the previous strongest Iceborn Legacy deck, and I think that there is a reasonable expectation that what we're playing here with the Trundle Elise could be the best version of the Iceborn Legacy deck now. My problem, my downside, the thing that you run into with issues with this deck is the historic problem of Elusive, Overwhelm, or Rally, right? So if you imagine that we're playing against a Nora deck, we've played our Iceborn Legacy, we've played a Spirits Unleashed, everything in our deck has +3/+3. We get our full board of 4/4 and 5/5 spiders, we attack, opponent just blocks everything and we don't deal any damage. And then the opponent says, oh, that was real cute, bust, nice attack you made. I'm going to attack with Nora, I'm going to draw some cards, I'm going to refill the board, you attack again, and they only have, say, 5 of your units blocked and you only deal 5 damage. And so without that Elusive, Overwhelm, or Rally, you really struggle to beat a large number of these decks. And so I feel like that's the ultimate problem here. You really want another way to Elusive, Overwhelm, or Rally that just doesn't exist. Like when it comes to Freylord, you kind of get stuck playing pack mentality, which just doesn't really feel particularly good. Otherwise, the thing to make note of in here is Wraith of Echoes. This card is no good. I thought that this card was trash before. I thought that we would give it a shot just to see what it could do, and it doesn't do anything. This card is just pure garbage. It's way too expensive. Over the course of 5 games, we had, I think we drew it in maybe 4, played it in 2, and then we were like really excited because it gave us Ceaseless Sentry +1/+1. No, like this card is trash and it has no business being in here. And so if you're looking to play this deck on your own, the Wraith of Echoes can most certainly go. But otherwise, the numbers in here feel pretty good. And so, good set of games. I had fun. I hope you did too, because that is going to do it for us today. And so I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way and you had a good time watching. So this is Bust, and we thank you for being here.